So let me introduce you to Jenny Herrera. She is the Executive Director of Acts 435. Do you want to say a little bit about yourself, Jenny?
Yeah, of course. I've been running Acts 435 since 2009, so since it began, where we've seen our network grow from the early days of like 1 or 2 partners up to about 550, I think we've got at the moment. And I'm based in York because we were set up by the Archbishop of York, Dr. John Sentamu.
Wonderful. But you cover the whole country, Acts 435, doesn't it?
We do. England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland. So yeah,
brilliant.
Wherever there's a church, we want to be connected.
Wonderful, brilliant. So do you want to talk to us a little bit about the very basics about Acts 435? What was it? What does it do? How does it work with churches? What, you know, the real sort of the nuts and bolts.
Brilliant. Well, thanks ever so much for listening to me this evening. Acts 435 is based on Acts chapter 4, verse 35 of the Bible, where, of course, you have the early church there, and the early church ensured that there was no one in need. People sold their possessions so that they could distribute to anyone in need. Recently, I was challenged on this, actually, because the person who was challenging me said that theologically that was just within the church. Now, Acts 435, the charity, is very much out towards your local community. But we use that strapline, giving to anyone in need. And really, what you see in the early church, we're trying to take much wider, in recognition really that there are churches, as we've been hearing, just as everyone's done their introductions, there are churches where people want to help, where there's quite a lot of affluence, and then there are churches in really deprived parts of the country, of the capital, who don't have just that access to resources. Churches in particular that are so focused on trying to cover their own church costs that they couldn't possibly do anything more if someone turns up and is in need. So what Acts 435 tries to do is link people who want to give with people who are in need. And of course, there's churches in the middle who have got both need and those who want to help. So it is a crowdfunding platform in essence, but it goes much wider than that. And really, we had, on Monday, we had an advocate gathering. So advocate is the name that we give to our contact person in each church. So Pat is one of our advocates, and we gathered about 60 of them over Zoom. We'd never have thought of doing it virtually. We used to bring everyone up to York, and it was so special to have 2 of the advocates from Cornwall that we've been working with for like 4 years, doing an incredible job. Never would have trekked up to York to see them on this Zoom call, and all these advocates saying, it's just a great resource. It's just the best job in our church is being the Acts 435 advocate, because we get to meet with people in need and we're able to help. And we're sat there thinking, well, our job's pretty great because we get to connect everyone. And then the donors say to us, we love Acts 435 because we're giving to a specific need. And we know that our £5 or our £20 or our £100 is going direct to a particular person with their needs. So I just want to start by just showing you our website, just because it helps scope it before I go into further detail. So here we go. So this is our website, and essentially it's a list of different needs. So you've got there £50 needed for gas, electric and a bus pass. A bit of a story. Kay is homeless, so we are linking with the homeless charity after a family breakdown, really down his luck. He's engaged all the while with local support agencies, given temporary work, but it's now dried up, finds himself without money for gas and electric. On top of this, no means of being able to get about as he's unable to afford a bus pass, which he uses to attend interviews. So people then choose to give to that particular need. That one's in Halifax. And basically, there's a toddler bed and a set of drawers. Just show you a few to get a sense of what we asked for. Cooker, tumble dryer, another cooker there, bed frame, lots of different needs. And donors can come on and think, what sort of thing do I particularly feel drawn to? Because I think, we're all drawn to different situations. Some are really drawn to help the homeless. Some are really drawn to help young families or single parents. I'm going to take you to Greater London. Let's see what we've got here. Laptop, that's a great one right now. Currently furloughed from her cleaning job, and her dream is to work in early years childcare, so she's doing a level 2 certificate. Mobile phone, another laptop. So you get a little bit of a sense. Supermarket vouchers. So you get a sense of the kind of variety, and I really my hope is today we end, as Alison said, end with like the simplest thing that you as a church can do to help people in financial need. And our limit is £150. So we say a small gift makes a big difference. This is not like the contribution. This is not going to solve, UK poverty. But what we've realised is that a lot of people don't have a buffer. A lot of people are managing month by month, and if something goes wrong, they just can't afford to cover it. And obviously, the Church of England have championed this and the issues with payday lenders and all that kind of stuff. So Acts 435 seeks to step into that gap and say, we can help in this crisis. We can lift a burden, or perhaps it is giving a fresh start. So one of the real common ones for the debt advice centres here is £90 for a debt relief order fee. So for someone to be released from debt, they need to pay for a debt relief order fee, which costs £90. Well, they're in debt, so they don't have £90. And our donors actually quite love giving that because they know it gives a whole fresh start with that amount of money. So you've got something like that right the way through to, as we saw, a cooker, a bed. We are raising the money. We've not got a warehouse with all those things. We are actually just raising the cash for you. A few stats for you. So we have helped about 25,000 people since we started just over 10 years ago with all this range of different items. And 100% basically of our requests are met within a month. Since the pandemic started, we've seen our activity double. That is both the giving and the needs. So we've seen churches, there's a bit of a lull to start with while some churches were kind of finding their feet, and then there were some advocates that were shielding, but then other advocates were able to really get posting lots of requests, and we basically saw double, so that in August of this year, we received £63,000 of giving in 1 month alone, when a normal month for us would have been 30,000. That just showed you that the people are out there who want to help. Because these are individual people. We haven't got a big grant fund. We haven't got churches giving us £5,000 a month to hand out. These are individual people who are reading those requests and saying, I want to help. I want to step into this situation. So the role of the advocate, it doesn't have to be the church leader. It doesn't have to be a CAP centre manager or a community money advice debt advisor. It needs to be someone in the church who is probably the best place to do the tech side of things and has this connection with the people who are meeting with people in need. And they are the ones that post that request. We don't do it as head office. In fact, we're a tiny head office. There's 4 of us. We're all part-time and we all work flexible hours from home. But you will be the one to write that request. Now, we do check each one and sort out any grammatical errors or typos and remove any data protection issues that might escape into there. But the reason we do that is because we don't want to get in the way. We want you to be able to have someone knock on your church door and in a desperate state because they can't pay some arrears or anything it could be. I'm just thinking about, we helped a homeless person with a guitar that was stolen and he was busking and his guitar was stolen. So we raised the money for him to get a new guitar. Whatever it is, you post it straight onto our website so that donors can give. And each request has a unique URL, so you can also share that with your church, especially churches where there are people in your own congregation who you think might want to give, but it's done in such an anonymous way. Let me share something that one of the advocates said on Monday to me. He was late and everyone was in breakout rooms and he came in and we just chatted while we waited for the breakout rooms to finish. And he said, I just love the anonymity of it. I just love the fact that no one knows who they're helping. They just get this story. And he said, and then when you give the money or you buy the item for the person in need, they just can't believe it. They just can't believe that a complete stranger would help them. And it might have been someone local, but I just thought about this. Actually, it makes them see humankind in a different way, because rather than just knowing that, Joe from their church has managed to source them a cooker or Marie's given them some money to pay for this, that or the other, they don't know who helped them. So as they walk down the street, they think, wow, a complete stranger cares for me. And that's what we've seen, that it's not just about the small gift, the item, the school uniform, and the job interview clothes. It's about the self-esteem. And of course, our heart in all this is that they would see God's love in action, that it would draw them in to see something there of the generous heart of our Lord, something of the fact that we want to show love and compassion, and just that opportunity. So it's completely free for a church to sign up to Acts 435. We just want to bless you. We just want to say, here is a resource for you to use as you meet with people in need. And really, who you connect with is entirely up to you. So we have rural churches who use Acts 435 about twice a year when there's a need. But we also have churches like this one in Cornwall I mentioned, who have got themselves known in the area. They've connected with the council, they've connected with citizens advice, they've connected with the local school saying we want to help, and it's just got them. But it just depends on what your capacity is. And others will do something in between. And maybe one church we work with in London, Holy Trinity in Tulse Hill, they had a member in their congregation volunteered at a domestic violence charity. So that was the connection. So she was like, oh, there's these different people we can help. And the advocate would then post the request for the person in need. I'm reading the chat now, sorry.
No, that's brilliant. That's really helpful. So, I mean, I think just so practically, effectively, you become an advocate church, doesn't cost you anything. You need to have somebody in that church who's going to be the sort of Acts 435, wear the hat, which is someone like Pat is the Acts 435 advocate in her church. And in terms of time commitment, that means that you would then post things online. And then someone might come to you and say, well, I've met someone at the food bank who needs a winter coat or whatever. And then you then post that online. And then what happens? The money gets raised and then the money gets transferred to the church.
Yeah, so when the request is met, you get an email saying your request has been met. That's sometimes in 2 days, 5 days. When it's met, you get that email. And then we send money 2 or 3 times a week. So we would send the money to your church bank account, and then you would liaise with your treasurers what to do. And we really leave it to you at that stage. Whatever is right for your church, whatever your treasurer is happy with in how you get the item or the money and how you do that. Obviously, at the moment, it's particularly difficult. I totally accept that a lot of people are just buying the item and getting it delivered to the person because of the whole social distancing.
So you get a choice whether you want to hand over money or whether you actually want to buy the item that the person wants. Because I think there is that question, isn't there? Should we give someone money if they're vulnerable? Would it necessarily potentially be spent in the right way? And I know there's a whole spectrum of thinking on that, isn't there, in terms of how we do that. But basically, it's up to the church to choose how to do that.
It's up to the church. And for some people, I always say, if there's someone in your congregation who's desperate for school shoes for their kids, you don't need to march them down to Clark's to make sure they spend it. You know them, they're going to. But there may be other people where you don't really know them from Adam, and therefore we would strongly advise you either accompany them. It's a great pastoral opportunity, or you buy the item on their behalf.
Yeah. But really, it works through relationships, because you build the relationship with the person who has the need, and then they get to know them. So actually, there's a trust relationship there. Brilliant.
Yeah, that's what we see with food banks in particular, where you're handing out food, but it's as a conversation. People aren't advertising it. Hey, there's also money from Acts 435. No, they're having a conversation. And when someone says, "Oh, I'm sleeping really badly because I'm sharing a bed with my child because I don't have a bed for them," that's the opportunity to step in.
To be able to offer that small amount. Brilliant. And I know one question that came up last time we talked to a group is actually sometimes churches have a fund already. They have like a vicar's sort of relief fund or whatever sometimes. How does this work with that? Is it a good idea to have both? Or because some vicars do have a pot of money they know they can just give out at their discretion.
For us, we very much see it like as an addition to that. Some churches have got quite a large discretionary fund. Our church here in York has sort of a helping hands fund, and a lot of people have given into it at this time. So we just use that, but there are plenty of churches that don't. And some of our churches have received over £10,000 in a year to hand out in these small gifts to people in need. So I'm not sure many people have got a discretionary fund at quite that level. Absolutely not.
Yeah, quite. And I know I was chatting to one vicar who said that she was so convinced that she knew Acts 435 money would come through, that if she had met a need there and then. She was able to use the money that she knew she had, and then she knew she was going to get it back eventually. So she was, you know, she had to. So sometimes you don't even have to wait if you're able to offer the money and then get it paid back, sort of thing, as it were.
Yeah, I think that's it. Your church. Yeah, your church would take the risk, but in practice, I mean, last 3 months, I think, let's see, April, May, June, 100% of our requests were met within 2 weeks. And then I think it was something like 93%. So it's been incredible.
So it's always within a month, but actually in 2 weeks, basically most needs are being met. So you can guarantee.
Yes.
Brilliant. And you operate out of the gift aid, is that right? So your charity is run, so the 100% of the money goes to the person who you, so if I want to give £10 to Mr. B for a cooker, Mr. B will get £10 from me.
Yeah.
And you take the gift aid.
Yeah, so we would cover even the credit card fees and any other costs, so that 100% of what you give goes, but then our model is that gift aid covers our admin funds, admin costs, and it more than covers. So we, you know, if we have overflow, we can just have that support to give to requests.
Brilliant, great. And I think, and one of the questions we often get is, how is it administrated in terms of keeping a record of it? You know, is that something that's a bit of a challenge for people? You know, if you've got several people helping at a food bank, and the advocate has to sort of listen to lots of different people's requests, how's that managed, or is that something that happens on the ground?
Do you want me to, can I show you the, this is the advocate control panel. Let's just check that I actually.
If you can, that'd be great, yeah. Just
so this, hopefully you can see that, and let me just put a password in. So this is as advocates where you would put your requests. These are all not real, it's a dummy account, but basically you add a request here. That's really straightforward. So you just put how much, up to £150, what it's needed for, and that little story that you saw on the website. You choose categories, put their name. That's not, we don't need that. Well, we take name and date of birth in case there's a repeat, to stop someone going from one church to another. They would be picked up by our system. That's the only reason we ask for it. We don't need to know their name, the town they're in, and then it goes on automatically for 2 weeks, that you've got their consent, and anything for the prayer bulletin. And then basically here you can track it. So you can see these are all pending, but you would have active if they were live on the website. So it should be very easy to administrate from the point of view. You can say, maybe you've posted 3 requests for John, Mark and Matthew, there we are. And you can see how they're doing. You would see how much had been given. And then when the money's come in, we would ask you to click on this little green dollar type icon, and you would put the date that you gave the money or item to that person. And there's usually a speech bubble there as well. Now the speech bubble is really important because that's where you write a thank you message. So I should just come back here. So one of the things about the Acts 435 model is that we encourage advocates strongly to write a thank you. And it's not going to be like, 10 pages long. It's just got to be, thank you for Mark's cooker. He was delighted that he can now cook for his kids when they stay at the weekend. But then the donor who gave to that request, or the donors that gave to that request, get that. And it's just, encourages them to give again because they can see them. So we've tried to, we had 80-year-old nuns in Hull using this. So it is super straightforward. I'm sure if you can manage Zoom calls, you can manage Acts 435's control.
Oh, lovely. I'm not sure we all can always manage Zoom calls, but we're doing our best. Brilliant, lovely. There's a question from Ben. Can a request be repeated if it exceeds £150? So like if you've got people who need more than £150, but it's a one-off, what do you do then? So this is a family of 4 needs winter coats, which is likely to be more than 150.
Yeah, what we would say is, if in that situation you could do, one request for 2 coats and 1 request for the other 2 coats, because the individual items are less. What we have found our donors don't give to is if it's a contribution to something bigger. So for example, there's a problem with your boiler and the repair is going to cost £120. Absolutely, use Acts 45, people will give. The boiler's totally broken and you need to replace it. It's going to cost £1,000, and can we raise £100 towards it? Donors just don't give, and it causes complications because even if they did, you've got the money. Where are you going to get the other £900 from? In the end, money gets sat in church bank accounts and it just causes problems. So we've been very strict. You can ask up to 3 requests for a household. So think of someone who's fled domestic abuse. There can be a need for school uniform because the kids change school, maybe a cooker, carpets, who knows. So you can do up to 3 different requests, but not. So go back to the debt relief order fee, £90 for debt relief order fee, definitely. £680 for bankruptcy fee, unless they've got all the rest and you just need that small balance. We ask that you don't post for that.
And so it's three, you could have 3 requests for a household in a set period of time, or just ever?
We used to do it per year, but now we've just done it ever, after which we just want to have that conversation with you, just to ensure no one's coming into a kind of dependency on Acts 435. It is really supposed to be a step in to a crisis and try and help.
Great. So it's not, so you're not going to get people just constantly going, I need to top up my phone, let me go back to Acts 435. Yeah, okay. Is that okay, Ben? Has that helped? I hope so. Good, lovely, brilliant. Well,
yeah, yes, that's fine. Thank you. Very helpful.
Lovely. I'd love to bring in Pat now, if that's all right, because Pat is a big fan of Acts 435. But I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about your experience of when you heard about it and what it was to apply for it and how you organised all that with your church. So I think that's often the barrier, isn't it? Who do I need to talk to? How long did it take me to apply? So tell us a little bit about your journey through.
Oh, well, there you go. Well, a lot of you have probably seen me on lots of other of these webinars, but I'm going to talk with my church hat on today. And I was introduced to Acts 435 by the lovely Alison Sang. So we collaborate a lot on training. Anything Alison tells me to do, I do. So Alison told me to do this, I did this. I came out of the training session, I was straight on the phone to Acts 435, how can we do this? How can we get involved? So literally the next day, the necessary applications were sent to me. A really, really simple form. It's not onerous at all. I think it's probably just 1 sheet of A4 and your bank details, and you are good to go. From there, I was a little bit scared, and so I was offered the chance, offered the opportunity to receive a buddy, who I did, Andrew Toynbee from Crosslight, who helped me along with my first couple of requests, and then we were off and running. So I just had a look a little bit earlier, and just this year, we started probably around about this time last year, but just this year alone, we have raised and filled 70 requests. So that's 70 families or individuals that we've made a difference to. And we are just shy of actually having helped families to the tune of £10,000. So we will be one of those, Jenny. I'm desperate to get there just so I can go done that tick. In terms of getting it started and getting it organised, well, actually, in terms of the thing that has made the biggest impact of all the things that I do this year, from credit unions to face-to-face debt advice to money cap coach, all of these things, I've got to say that Acts 435 has made the biggest impact. We've had thank you notes from people who are on the verge of suicide and have suddenly got self-esteem again. I had a gentleman today who had suffered domestic, financial and coercive abuse. And, I was just saying, yeah, we'll be able to put this for you, that's not a problem. He just burst into tears on the telephone because he couldn't believe that people that didn't know him were just being able to help him with some removal costs makes such a dramatic difference to his life. In terms of getting it organised through my church, well, fortunately, I have an incredible superstar parish priest who is as big a maverick as I am, and he's like, yeah, Pat, just do it. So that was great. But in terms of how much time it takes up, I'm also a little bit blessed in as much as my day job is my sort of voluntary vocation as well. But literally, sort of when we did have the church sort of like widely open and people were coming in this thing pre the pandemic, we ran a food bank. We still run the food bank, and a credit union, and we had various things. We had a homeless evening where we'd feed people in the evenings as well. So lots of opportunity to sort of like interact with people that were marginalised and, hard to reach in our community. And of course, now we've been doing it for so long, we just have a reputation as well. We've got a really, really healthy parish council that sort of like work within the community with people in different aspects. And literally, somebody in the parish has a need, or the priest or one of the volunteers recognises that somebody has a need. It's literally a 5-minute phone call to me. They tell me the story. What Jenny didn't mention is that what you're writing, you're not sort of filling in some massive, great big onerous application form. It's 500 characters, which, are there any millennials here? No, you're all my age, that's fine. Which is like 2 long tweets, basically, or 1 long sentence. So it's a really, really short story. You do develop a knack for doing these. So quite often, you know, people will try to do them and it'll be, Pat, I can't get this into 500 characters. And you have a look and it's like, yeah, fine, no problem. Biggest bonus for me is when I hit it bang on 500 characters, I do a little victory dance, but it's okay to be a little bit under, so don't worry about that. That's just me being childish. But as I say, in terms of, so I will post a request. What we found in the earlier part of lockdown, where I think people were saving, as you know, much as it impacted on a lot of people, people were saving a tremendous amount of money as well from not using their fares, cancelling subscriptions and all of this sort of thing. So we were posting requests in the morning, and by the time I had turned around to try and get them out in our newsletter or send them out by email to people that I know would donate, they were filled already. It was tremendous. I think Jenny mentioned that about 80% of requests are filled within 2 weeks. We're still finding pretty much all of our requests are filled within a week to 10 days at the moment. And again, some of those just obviously connect with the donors and they'll get filled very, very quickly indeed. It's really simple. We post the request, 500 characters, goes on the site, it gets filled. I get an email back saying that the request is filled. The next day, or maybe a day later, I'll get another email to say that the money's been transferred, and that then, you know, we either give that to the client, buy what the client needs, or it's with the client. So, you know, I could post a request on Monday and it could be filled and with the client by Wednesday or Thursday. It's incredible. It can be incredibly quick and really, really easy. And as I say, the most impactful thing that we've done this year. So I'd really encourage, there's no excuse why you can't do this, actually. It's such a tremendous impact and it is so incredibly rewarding as well. There's no excuse for you not to do it. So please do. I'll stop moaning now.
Sorry, that's brilliant, Pat. I've got a few more questions for you. But Jenny, there's just a quick question from Debbie about how do people know that the requests are up there? So if Pat posts £100 to somebody, how do people know to give that money?
So if it's people that maybe know that you would have to get the word out if it's local people who you think might want to help. So for example, if you run a food bank and that people know there's a need, you think they might want to hear about it, when you post the request, you will get the actual web link. So you could then share it through your church's social media or just put it out to people you know. Otherwise, people are just choosing to come on and look, and that's basically what happens. And we have a lot of filters, so you can choose by area, like I showed with Greater London, but you can also choose by older people or disability or children, or we've got a search function. So if you just really want to help someone with something like, I don't know, job or interview, you could put that and see if there's any requests that are relevant. So you can do it that way.
So there are just a lot of very generous people in the UK who regularly will just go onto the Acts 435 website and go, I'm going to give 20 quid to this and 20 quid to that. And that's how that also happens. You get that. It's not just having to do local fundraising.
Yeah, I mean, basically our focus at the moment has always been to get churches to access our resource. We're not worried, you know, yes, we ask you to let your congregation know, but there's no kind of stats we're going to be showing how many donors you've brought on board. We have been so blessed that we haven't had to worry about that. And donors just come on and give. Out of the last 6 months, I was just looking at the figures recently, 22% of funds that have come in the last 6 months have come from new donors. And each week they just come, some find us on social media, some just do a Google search and stumble across us, and some do find out through local churches and charities. It's God's incredible provision.
Amazing. And so actually, if you're in a church that has people who would like to give more, this would be a good way of people doing that, connecting. I mean, I'm not trying to say people shouldn't give to their local church, but if you're in a church where you feel actually there are a lot of people who have actually done better out of lockdown, they're not paying the community and they'd like to give some more money to people who are really struggling, then this would be a good way of doing that as well.
It would be a good way. I think it's very attractive for donors who want to make that direct link and really connect with someone. And sometimes donors give and then they get the thank you and then they come back and say, can we help more with a particular person? So just so taken in by the story.
And I guess there are people who just use their giving money every month and just do that. So it's interesting to know it's not. So you don't have, it can be local, but it also can be national as well. So brilliant. Ben said, is it just for families, or can a group like parents and toddlers be eligible? So I think that's, it's basically anybody is eligible. Is that right, Jenny?
To be helped, absolutely anyone. Yeah, and we've got a great story with a church in Barnsley here in South Yorkshire, and they're in a really deprived area, but they'd never done anything with the community, didn't really know what to do, so they signed up to Acts 435, and then they thought, we still don't know what to do, so they put a poster up in the toddler group, which was the only thing the church did run, which is very common. And at that toddler group, someone from the local children's centre said, oh, would you be able to help some of our vulnerable families? And it led to this amazing connection with the children's centre, and we've helped 70 families in Barnsley.
Wow. So it's so and it doesn't have to be families, it could be single people, it could be people who are homeless. I think I looked at the London one before, and there's quite a lot of people, single refugees who've just been moved into accommodation. So there's no, you don't put any barrier on what sort of person can receive it, because I guess you're trusting the church to make that call, right?
Yeah, we're trusting the church, and variety is king for us, because our donors want a variety. If they all said rent arrears, it would be boring. That variety is what we actually need. Variety in location, variety in type of person who's in need, variety in the item that's being requested. And sometimes, just this week, Rona, who's our operations director, sent me an email, said, what do you think about this? And it was someone in Bradford, and their mother in Nigeria needed some help with, I think it was an appendix operation, and he was going to send £150 for her, and therefore try and live on £5 a week. So the request was that, what do you think? And I'm like, it's not, basically the person in need is not here, but then at the same time, it's the guy in Bradford who's the one who's now going to be, he's going to do it anyway. It's going to help his mum. So that puts me in financial need. And what I always say is, well, let's try it. These are individual people giving. If people want, feel like this is something they want to help with, they'll help. And if they don't, then we'll just say, sorry, it was a bit out of our remit.
Brilliant, great, thank you very much, that's really helpful. Pat, is there anything I was going to ask you about? I'm aware it sounds like you've got a great setup with your priest. How did you tell people about, I mean, some people might have to go through PCC meetings and all that, right? Great that you could just crack on and get on with it. How do you let people know in your church know that you're doing this? And are you a bit inundated? Because you could end up being inundated by people going, oh, I know someone who needs a whatever. How do you manage that?
So in terms of our parish council, then there's some fabulous films on the Acts 435 YouTube channel. We've actually just got screens in our church, so we'll be playing that now, which I'm really excited about. We had just ordered a massive ton of about 3,000 leaflets and flyers from Jenny to do a massive, great big promotion the week before lockdown happened. So that was an absolute nightmare. But again, if you're as involved in your churches as I know that you all are, you will have contact with people. There will be people that you'll, if you've got school-age kids, you'll see the parents at school, you'll see the kids that are in scrappy uniforms. You'll know, and it's like using those contacts to start conversations, with people that might be in need, but also being able to present this as an opportunity to people that are in a position to donate and want to help and just don't know how, or they're cash rich and time poor. So to make a donation, they'd love to volunteer, but they've not got the time. This is something that they can do. So, and the fact that we're inundated, it's the saddest thing in the world, but it's, again, feels so privileged that you can be that person or that organisation that sort of facilitates that, and that those people can turn to. So important.
Brilliant. I think when I first heard about it, I couldn't believe that all these needs got met. But that's the most extraordinary thing. Things go up and they get met. So that's very, very beautiful. A couple of questions, and I think we've answered all the basics. But if people have got questions or thoughts, do either post them up or ask them now. Justine, you saying, are there any resources? What do you mean by that? Do you mean in terms of how to post requests and things? If you don't mind asking.
I'm so used to hosting meetings that it's like, how do I unmute myself? I was just thinking about things like, I can see that we're quite separated from our community. So we're quite a wealthy church with quite a wealthy congregation. And there are other parts of the parish hidden away from us that are very different from that. So, you know, are there posters? It's like, how do we get that initial connection? We've got school governors in the school that I'm thinking of, but how do we actually turn that into that degree of need, I guess is the question.
Yeah, we do have different resources. Most people don't need them because they are on the opposite spectrum in terms of all their connections. But for those that don't, and that's why the poster was so important at this church in Barnsley, because that's what they saw. I've only got these two to hand that I just reached for. So we have like a leaflet that explains what it's all about, the kind of thing you'd give to school governors. But we've also got a much simpler thing that you would give to people in need. So you maybe say to the local food bank, can you put these out, and then you put your contact details so that it would make contact. We also have donor postcards. We also, very excitedly, just before lockdown, so they're all sat in boxes at the printers, did a special 10-year anniversary booklet, and in that we have lots of stories of people helped. As for someone he was a homeless guy, and we got some painting equipment for him. That's an example of not necessarily a basic necessity, but something that blessed the socks off him, and he made that. So that's also, we've got tons of those. So, there's things you can ask for and use to kind of help explain what we're all about.
Thank you.
We digitalised everything, so all of the promotional materials that Jenny has, we managed to sort of get them into a web format, so we can post those branded as Acts 435 along with our newsletters, our parish newsletter, my charity newsletter. So I'm continuously pumping those things out. And as I say, incredibly frustrating when I've just done all the beautiful bits to get one of my requests out, and it's already been filled before I've had a chance to post it. So it is fabulous.
Brilliant. But I guess, yeah, there's a thing about just, I guess partly it's a question of finding out where the needs are and then going, actually, can I just meet somebody who might then be able to use this as the sort of the connector person? So whether that's the children's centre or, like you said, parishes have hidden pockets, don't they, all over the place. So is that all right, Justine? Has that answered your question? Brilliant. Ben was asking about the links with the Archbishop of York, and is it an Anglican thing or is it wider?
Totally wider. We did it as an Anglican pilot back in 2009 in York Diocese, but since then we've gone wide, and Christians Against Poverty have done wonders for spreading the word. That's why we are so as widespread as we are, but work closely trying to get a partnership in with the Salvation Army, which is quite difficult, but trying to work the way through that. And we've done a lot recently with St Vincent de Paul Society, some brilliant, lots of Catholic churches coming on board. And as for the donors, we don't really know, to be honest, because obviously they just log onto our website and give. Our sense is that we've done surveys in the past, but our surveys have been more about, yes, we might have asked them if they're church-going Christians, but we wouldn't go down to denomination, and a good number are. But the thing we ask them is things like, what sort of requests do you give to? And it's just wonderful, because some are like, oh, wait, we give to the ones for families, or we give to the ones where our gift really makes a difference, or we give to this. And then one guy says, I give to the ones that I don't think will appeal to anyone else. I like you.
That's a really lovely answer. So actually,
we're a Catholic church. I believe we're the largest Catholic church in the Diocese of Westminster, and as well as St Vincent de Paul, I'm a trustee for Caritas, which is another social outreach arm of the Catholic Church. So we're hanging on to your shirt tails, but loving the ride.
Yeah, so I think it's brilliant that it is actually so non-denominational. And my little plug is the Diocese of London don't have many Acts 435 advocate churches. In London, there's quite a lot, but there's not many Church of England ones. So just that's my challenge is, can we up that, please? I think you've been obviously, because you're based in York and you're in the sort of northern province, you've got a higher representation in the north, haven't you? I think, but there's need everywhere. So we'd love it if some more Diocese of London churches would want to sign up. It's not like the need's not there; it's there.
And sometimes donors come to us and say, not so much now because they might find something, but we certainly had one. Why is there no requests in the West Midlands? Well, we just don't have many churches. So then we did a bit of a blitz on Birmingham. But, there are donors out there saying, well, I'll give to this need in Glasgow, but I'd much rather give to a need in Hackney, if I knew there was one.
Yeah, brilliant. So yeah, the USP, the thing is, let's think about signing up. Not that I'm obviously, I feel like I'm a salesperson. This is not my normal.
I'm an Acts 435 evangelist.
I just think it's a great organisation, and we don't hear enough about it. So, and I think for some churches it can be really helpful. Well, for every church it can be really helpful actually, for different reasons. But so yeah, I'm really, and I think it's one of the pieces of the how do we help people around money. It's never going to, like you say, sort out everybody's. You know, if someone has lost their job, it won't sort out all the stuff that comes with unemployment and esteem and worry about, you know, that. But it could just be a gift to bless them as they're beginning to do that. So yeah, so I think that's what's great about it. And we talked a little bit about, I don't know if any of you at the loan shark session we done a couple of weeks ago, that it was really powerful about how we help people who've borrowed money illegally. And the loan shark team basically can tackle the money lender, but the person who's borrowed money illegally doesn't have any recourse to getting that back. So actually, we were talking about Acts 435 might be a brilliant way of just being able to help them out with something that you know, small amounts of money to help them there. So there's various applications. I mean, a lot of food banks use it as well. For things that are more than just a bag of food. Actually, it's things when, like you say, when you have the conversations about, you know, my bed, I haven't got a mattress, or things like that. So Pat, did you want to come back in?
I did, yeah. One of the things that we haven't touched upon is that the fact that this is just so sustainable. You know, most sort of like grants that people might get their hands on, you know, there's a certain pot that is ever diminishing unless you find another way to top this up. This is just a perpetual pot, if you like, that's just always sustainable. So, you know, Acts 435 are never going to run out of money. You know, and never going to get to a point to say, right, that's it, we're going to have to close the fund because we haven't got enough donors. You know, as it just grows, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, as kindness gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think this whole momentum that we've had with the mutual aids groups and people wanting to volunteer and give of their time and give gifts is, you know, it's something to be galvanized and to capitalize on. So, you know, that's something as well that I think is so very important. It's sustainable. I can't think of any one reason why you wouldn't do this. And if you're based in London, I am quite happy to be your buddy and stalk you on the internet until you're all comfortable to do it. So I used to be a salesperson.
So basically, the take home from this session is Pat's offering to be a stalker, which is lovely. Really pleased about that. But no, thank you, Pat. It's really good to hear your experience. I think there is the whole kind of, it sounds great, but actually, what does it really be like on the ground? And it's good to hear your enthusiasm and how brilliant it's been. And I think particularly at the moment, we don't know what needs we're going to get, but some people are really struggling, and some people are. You know, that little bit could be a massive difference to them. So Jenny, anything else you wanted to say before we sort of wrap up, and any other questions or any thoughts from anyone else? No,
nothing springs to mind, just thinking stories, but yeah, I think
we've been through all those. Brilliant. Great. Well, I'm expecting lots of churches to sign on. There's no pressure, but I think it's just something to think about as a really good response to one of the things we can do. And as I said, the sessions that we've done 8 sessions overall, and we've looked at lots of different responses, and some of them are really big, like setting up a debt advice centre. That may take you 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years time, but actually we also wanted to, not every parish has the resource to do that, but I feel like with Acts 435 it's something that most parishes would have the resource to do if they as a sort of and a really good way of connecting with people who need stuff. So so brilliant, lovely, great. Well, we will look forward to hearing more about how people get on with that. Just to finish up, just say thank you hugely to Jenny. So lovely to have you here. The way you speak about Acts 435 is just, I know it's your job, but you do so with such passion. So thank you and love. And thanks, Pat, as well. And Pat and Jenny, you're happy if people want to get in touch with you directly, you're happy for me to connect you directly afterwards?
Yeah, totally.
So if anybody wanted to have an email, go on, Pat.
I'm based in Kilburn in northwest London. So Kate, you're very close to me. I think there was somebody from White City and somebody else very, very close as well. Yeah, we're Kilburn, that lovely little ghetto surrounded by beautiful oases such as Notting Hill and Maida Vale and St John's Wood. So yes, and for those of you that aren't very local to me, then we have Zoom. I'll stalk you on that.
Brilliant. Well, I think Justine's offered you an invite, so.
I'm can south of the river. I can. I
Brilliant.
get a little bit dizzy and nosebleeds, but I'm sure I can do that.
Wonderful. So there's an offer there from Pat that if you want to set up and have a buddy, then she's the buddy. I'm sure there are other people as well locally, but if Pat sounds like a brilliant buddy to have if you wanted to do it.